Good afternoon, everyone. Those flooded, damaged cars on the East Coast, they're all starting to tidal wave onto the market. Buyer beware. Over in India, just massive amounts of pollution coming down the rivers, white suds. We got tornadoes in the deserts. And now the BRICS meetings have occurred. Silver's starting to run. What's it mean for you and I? Let's take a look at it. And we'll start you off with a slide that you don't see every day. 10 millibar winds on the southern part of our world. The flow has split and we are looking at owl eyes. Well, it was a figure 8 a month and a half ago, so this is starting to return to the unusual wind flows. Also coming out of Italy here, check out this red halo elf. And that red disc is actually wrapping around a magnetic field line. So that's what it looks like. Those things that you see, those animations from space, that's one running down, and that is encapsulating it. Speaking of electrical flow through space, back here on Earth, over 1 million tons of rice destroyed in the floods in Bangladesh. You know, they're reliant on that rice. What happens now is more the question. There's already rice shortages occurring across the planet. This would be a very interesting case study to see what type of food substitutes would be used in the average household if they're unable to get a hold of rice. Because everywhere you look, I don't care where you look, our food supply is being knocked out at the knees. Your availability of food, where you can purchase food, shocking number of cafes and restaurants closing each month in Ireland. But that was the fallback. That was the backup. Remember, everybody was going to back up fast food. We can still get fast food. Well, what if it's not even open for you to go get it? Cafes and restaurants. Now you're pretty much relegated to the supermarkets only. If many more closures come across the planet, then I think the only thing that would be open were supermarkets. But there's an enormous amount of those closing as well. So now the cattle chute funnels even tighter. And as I was mentioning, 138,000 cars, as Carfax states, this is off the Weather Channel, all the Hurricane Helene flooding. See those cars? Those are all coming to market. And they give you a full list on things to look for, like fog in the headlights because that water can't evaporate out. How do you identify a water-damaged vehicle? So the point of their story was used car prices are going to drop significantly with this tidal wave, but most of them will be flooded vehicles, so you're not really getting the deal that you think you would get. And then we have Roswell, New Mexico. This is another example of our streets turn into the rivers when the normal drainage channels are overwhelmed with a 1,000-year flood. This is occurring everywhere on the planet, and in desert areas, it's not just here. The Gobi Desert is regreening. I hope you saw the video I did a couple days ago. North Africa and the Sahel and the Middle East are turning green again. So the hydrological cycle is definitely spun. And over to India with the Yamuna River in Delhi, somehow all these soap suds or this kind of chemical sud is just making its way downriver. Nobody can explain why it is, what it is, where it came from. Silence in the bubble bath. And Trump warns a Kamala win could lead to a 1929 style crash. Costco seen double-digit growth in gold sales as gold hits all-time highs. Goldman Sachs raised their target $2,900 an ounce by early 2025. Silver outperformed gold up in 2024 32%. That's an 11-year high. And JP Morgan forecasts silver to hit $36 an ounce in early 2025. Call the proud Americans of the Patriot Gold Group today before it's too late. And Patriot Gold Group has the No Fee for Life IRA, where your IRA or 401k can be in physical gold or silver. And you may qualify for the No Fee for Life IRA on qualifying rollovers. Give them a call, 888-546-7020 for your free investor guide today. And now on with the video. But then we're going to flip to the opposite of water. Dust devils and tornadoes. This is in the United Arab Emirates. Not something you see every day, but it could be just a large dust devil. I get it. Maybe it's not a tornado, but these are definitely two tornadoes in the United Arab Emirates. Not only is the area becoming wetter, but they're starting to see some of these Same electrical activity in the storm fronts that are now dropping. Tornadoes, dust devils, I don't know what you like to term them, but for me, EF1 would be a good descriptor for this. And if you think it's just clouds and rainfall, now in Washington state, we're starting to see volcanoes rumbling far more. And they're saying, hey, the magma's intruding, and what is this going to result in? So I would ask you in Cascadia, if one of these were to go off, how would that affect our country, and how would it affect that local area, which is also massive in terms of food production? Now, normally, if that were to happen, like it did with Mount St. Helens in the 80s, well, everything else was 100% viable, and it was just churning along. That little area was taken offline relatively in a global sense, but in terms of, a couple of states being greatly affected. So that food production could be made up elsewhere easily. But now where we sit today, where everything yield decline is reducing to the point of being very visible, like, wow, this is why your food is getting so expensive. The tremendous amount of food processing plants, crop yields across the planet declining. So if this were to occur and there was a major eruption in Cascadia and the ashfall went over agricultural zones, it would definitely have an immediate effect, and it would be a noticeable driver on prices for certain produce items. So when you see that, you might as well buy your potatoes or whatever it is that you're getting out of Washington, Oregon, Northern California, or British Columbia. And speaking of the Pacific Northwest, these are sequoias here. Early 1900s, and the one on the right, 1950. These trees are immense, and I'm so happy they're still there. So we'll save the big ones. And over the last couple days, the BRICS have had their meetings. What does that mean for solar and silver? Well, silver price is definitely moving north. All the BRICS participants are talking about it have a bimetallic system along with gold to back their currency, and now also silver to back their currency. And this transition over to a lot of solar panels, a lot of green tech, is going to use a lot more solar, especially those solid-state batteries that use 32 ounces of silver. So now it's all going to be on the investment side and on the industrial side. And you can see the general trend is up and up and up. It's not going to stop from here. It's going to ramp up tremendously, and all these plans to install more solar capacity are just going to gobble up more silver. They're definitely on the track of creating a dual currency to the U.S. dollar. And the reason I would say that, see that public debt, that giant straight up, that's $500 billion in a couple of weeks printed. This is the reason we see a lot of people fleeing. Different nations want to trade amongst themselves. They don't want to have to hold this debt. So another interesting one, I thought it really was not that greatly in play yet, but as we look at this, the U.S. share of global Forex reserves dropped to its lowest level in 29 years, meaning there is an effect happening in real time. And this off Wolf Street here, U.S. dollar share of global reserve currencies from 66 down to 58%. And that is going to continue to drop, not in a single day, in a single event, but it will continue that same trajectory. And at what point does it roll over where the U.S. dollar is not the global dominant Forex reserve currency? Once it goes below 50% somewhere in the future, that means that something will have taken its place, not at 100%, but that just means we need to print even more money than we have now, and things are going to get far more expensive. And this might be where some of these glimpses of history and hyperinflation events come rolling back. It's a cycle. Because I wanted to point this out to you. As the BRICS meetings were happening, the closing price during that first day was, can I see it clearly, $33.11, $33.11. All right, that's a pretty large increase and a very large signal, 33. Okay, you start to see those numbers again. Not financial advice, but looking at this chart here also, do you see a repeatable cycle in here? Look at the blue, look at the red, look where we are now. Just asking, because if we do look at the gold-silver ratio over history, generally on this entire chart from 3200 BC, that's like more than 5,000 years ago, all the way until the mid-1700s, it never went outside the range of 15 to 1. Today's world, we sit around 87 to 1. This is going to tighten back up, especially if they're going to use it as monetary metals, and they're also going to try to use an enormous amount for green tech. This gold to silver ratio is going to tighten. And when it does, that just means one thing: silver price is going to go up and up. So are we ready for such a vast change? And it will be considered a relatively quick time frame. It's not going to be instantaneous. It's not going to be a single day event. Whoosh, it just changed. But it's going to be a continuous draw out of conversion to those that will start using ways to pay for things from other countries called settlement without using the US dollar. That means that we're just going to have to continually print more. And as more countries find their own ways to trade, whether they trade, a ship full of wheat for a ship full of manganese, and that price difference there, they can settle with their BRICS currency that's backed by gold and silver for the difference between those two cargoes. It leaves us in a whole different world. Like literally an entire world has evolved. As of a couple of days ago, one of the most significant events in the last 70 years to occur, like the ending of World War II, that significant of an event just occurred. This shift will not be a day that will live in infamy, but definitely the beginning of the transition which will. The only thing left is to fight militarily to keep the dominance of the dollar. That's what's the scariest out of everything. Food shortages are one thing, but a cornered animal that is going to lose its power and ability to pay and control will go to its last breath fighting. This is the thing, as we look across the landscape from yesterday, that is on the horizon somewhere, and we shall see signs. There will be ramp-ups, more chatter, more saber rattling, to the point it isn't any longer, and it's active. So how would you prepare for something like that, is the question. Now, I don't have all those answers, but Ransom Godwin and myself, civilizationcycle.com, and the Civilization Cycle podcast, we do discuss these issues, trying to find some of these answers. Also, join me over on Rumble and BitChute on the Adapt 2030 channel, where I do regular uploads. And again, that's civilizationcycle.com. We'll get the show notes for you on our live shows Thursday night. I do appreciate you watching. Hope you got something out of the video. Bye for now.